Anything to 911 because they had no ability to get cell phone reception. So a lot of safety things, a lot of access, a lot of needs.
So I have a question about that. Bristol particularly, without cell phone service there, can somebody just cut the cord for this phone system once it's installed? No? Okay, I just want to make sure.
I mean, unless they're going underground in the wires, I mean, this would all be a wired system.
It's cable.
It's all
I mean,
cables.
someone would have to, drop what they're doing, climb around, figure out which one's the right cable. I mean, technically, if they had a half an hour to, plan it and go through and cut some cables, I'm sure they could do that for one line, and then they would have to find another line.
Okay.
So, yes, of course, there is the possibility that,
You can cut the cable outside.
No, actually,
I mean,
there's
compared to the
centralized
system we
service,
have now.
so you can cut this would actually be better than an analog phone drop, but we're not going 100%. Each school will have its own server, so some VoIP systems run off of one server. In this case, we're going with a server at each school. We don't have a T1 line connecting all of our schools, part of having to deal with so many small schools. But this would improve the cabling and putting Cat 6 cable in every room as well, and that's included in this price.
But it is coming in on a Comcast cable.
No, actually the phone line's not, it's coming through your existing phone lines, and then it's being digitalized, and the VoIP system's gonna be unique to each school. So, but that's coming in from, Fairpoint or whomever?
But it's still coming from a cable outside the building.
As would any. But the internal, the syncing with the phone's internal, and because it's using VoIP, it would have to be pretty extensive, the ability to cut that off. They would not be able to cut off the school, though, from being able to communicate with themselves. And this is integrating, this cost also includes integrating with their existing intercom and improving intercom systems.
It's not only a safety issue, but how about privacy issue? The office calls, we used to talk to the teacher, or you have to have that. Yeah, oh yeah, that's really private.
Yeah.
And if the nurse calls, needs to talk to the teacher, that has to
I mean, it also provides teachers an opportunity to call a parent in their classroom, not use the main office phone. So, I mean, there are definitely advantages. Never mind just the advantage that at some point in the near future, now could I predict 6 months, 10 years, who knows, our phone system is going to die. It is an ancient system. It's a system I had in my last district that we got rid of about 7 years ago. That's about how long they stopped making the phones and really doing anything with them. So it costs us every time we need something, a repair guy has to come out. To move a phone, the repair guy has to come out. So it's a cost. But again, this is a cost too. Something we need to get to.
I just had a question. I thought we had some kind of enhancer for cell phones. I don't disagree that we need.
Yeah, we do.
radio phones,
So we have
but-
boosters in our buildings, but they only go so far. So the booster at Bristol Elementary School doesn't go to the second floor.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, they can only do so much. I do know the town has been looking at another cell tower.
We've
which
talked
would help
to
us
the
in
town to
second
bring that
year.
back and look, because initially when they had looked at that on a warrant article, they didn't include the school district, and we have a lot of properties that could be valuable, so we're absolutely looking at bringing that back with more options.
Yeah, and I know last time I talked to the police chief, they were looking at, just for, again, safety purposes. And nowadays, people are more and more in tune to wanting to be online and have that access in town, so I think they're looking at, I think the town is actually looking at that.
And that will bring us revenue too.
Yeah.
So,
And the last is to upgrade the auditorium projector. This is in honor of Mr. Migliori, so that we don't have to make sure that a projector is there. There will be one there permanently installed, and that we will have access to very easy, like this, easier than wiring it and getting it down there. So it will also be a nicer projector to project actually on the full screen, and just for that space, it needs more than just a Proxima on the desk. So that was kind of what is in that budget beyond like the technology plan for technology. And just the last slide is just kind of an overall comparison, so you could get a feel. I wanted to just give you a feel for what was in the budget. You will see as you go through it, there's other ups and down lines. I tried to hit the big items. So if you start at the bottom, those are the 2 expenditure years, so those were actually what we spent in the district on those 2 years. You'll see that on your in that first section of the overall budget, you'll see those same numbers. The 14-15 approved budget, which is the one we're using this year, is $20,310,000. The 15-16 proposed budget is $20,734,000. Again, so that is a higher number, but again, it takes into consideration all that I was planning. The downside of that number is that it does not fall within the tax cap. So Mike and I have estimated that the tax cap is about $238,000 over the current year's budget. We also have to consider the teacher's contract in there.
Considering all other revenue sources stay the same.
Right,
So
stay
if
the
you look
same.
at just the local assessment, it would be about
Yeah.
exactly what you
So
said.
we still have to get you, which is, actually I have one more. Still need to work on the grant budget, food service budget, the revenues default, and the tax cap calculation. So we're gonna be working on that over the next week to get you that for your next meeting. But basically the tax cap will limit us to about, say, $240,000 over the current year's budget. So why did I give you this information and not meet the tax cap? Because I wanted you to see kind of where we need to start to think about going in the sense of, again, when I talked earlier about the tax cap, that tax cap was put into place without really any facilities plan and tech, those kinds of things. And so as you start to build those bigger projects that we need to get done, you're gonna continuously hit that border of where you can't go higher. And so I will also be working over the next 2 weeks before your next meeting to come to you and say, here's my proposal for what you should cut, what we should cut out of the budget to get to that tax cap number, because also I know that budget, Mike and I know the budget far more than you do. You may actually go through and have some recommendations as well, but I will help you out and start to outline some of those things. A lot of them will be the plans. But I think it's important to start to think about what that looks like as we move forward in the future, to start to develop those plans.
That's true, but you can also individually identify numbers that you want to exceed the tax cap with and put them in as warrants.
Exactly. You can do, you can't do it as a warrant. I think you can override the tax cap at deliberative session, but I think your warrant articles have to still remain under the tax cap. We just started reviewing it a tad bit, because we knew this question was gonna come up, what about, but I think all your warrant articles have to be under the tax cap. Somebody at deliberative session can make a motion to override the tax cap with a number.
Okay, well, the point,
Yeah.
whatever it turns out,
Yeah, we'll research it for the next meeting and have a good answer.
you can identify individual projects if you add cap that you want to cost out, in a sense prioritizing them in that manner. But
Yeah. And if the board's okay, we'll get legal advice just to how that might look or work, so that we have all the options for the next meeting.
If we need to go that far, probably. But
Yeah, it's interesting because the actual law really doesn't say anything else other than you can override the tax cap at a deliberative session or annual meeting.
And it's 10% that you can override that, right?
Yeah, so you can't,
Well,
so the
that's
10%
what
is
you
you
can raise the
can't,
budget by.
yeah, you can't go up or down the budget more or less than 10%. But we will research and have a better answer for you at the next meeting. It was something we just, as we looked at the tax cap yesterday and today, it was one of those, okay, how would this look and how would this work? So that you guys can be prepared or not be prepared. So that was all I had for tonight. I just wanted to give you an overview of it. You have some reading material, and I'm suspecting at the next meeting we'll have lots more conversation.
I don't think that we've discussed a next meeting.
Yeah, but I'm assuming at some next meeting, you're gonna have a meeting to discuss this. So I'm being presumptuous that you will have a meeting to discuss the budget at some point.
I had asked Stacy about this and said, it would have been nice to have the budget to look at before this meeting, so we come with questions and save some time, but I understand not. I understand wanting to give us the overview before we dig into the details, so, excuse me. So we were thinking about having a board meeting on the 27th in order to, and having the budget be the only item on the agenda. So I know we're deviating off the calendar, off the script here, but can you guys check that date? It'll be Monday the 27th? 1, 2, 3 people can't make it, okay. Can you do an appointment,
Meeting with
send out a meeting thing and
Thank
see
you.
when we can, so we don't spend that time here, but that way we could hopefully be ready for November. Have a meeting just for this subject, nothing else. So, to be determined, I guess.
Okay, I'll send that out.
Anyone have comments, questions? Yep.
Yeah, we're moving on, right?
Well, I didn't know if anyone had any comments or questions about the budget.
I have a comment about moving on.
Okay, all right. Okay, what's your comment about?
I would just like to thank the entire staff and team for showing up to sit through this for us.
Yeah.
Shows some great cohesiveness, and it's appreciated at least by me, and probably the rest of the board as well, so thank you. The other comment I have is I think this is entirely too far into the meeting for public comment.
Oh. I don't know if, and there's only one public comment. I think, to be honest, that was an oversight. Yeah. However, are we ready?
Good.
Okay. Yes?
Yeah, fund balance and communication upgrades.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. So we do have 2 more items. Fund balance is next usually. And what is it? Is the bottom line question. Is it the 1.8 million?
No, clear, well, you have, and to go back to it. If you want to go back to the financial reports, we can do that.
Page 39.
Yeah. It's 1.4 million is an unreserved, according to the draft audit report. I'm drawing your attention to a $1.458 million unassigned fund balance that you have at the end of the year. By law, you can only retain up to $407,000 of that. To be specific, $407,741. What fiscal year are you reserving this for? Is it next year's budget?
Well, there hasn't been a motion yet, but yeah.
Well,
Yeah, it would
no,
be
it's
this year.
actually this year, so that's why I'm asking, because it's your current fund balance. So last year you had a fund balance of $350. When we go to...
Oh, you mean to use this year?
Yeah, so where does it sit, and what year is it for? It's for the current budget. I want to ask you a question too. Did you budget for any contingencies when we created the FY15 budget? We pulled all contingencies out of it.
We did.
Yes.
We did.
So that's why my recommendation is to stay up to this number. $404,000, which is the 2.5% of your local assessment.
Allowable by DOR.
Correct. Yes.
Calculated in some magic manner, we don't really need to know the details.
No, it's very simple, actually. It's just 2.5% of your local assessment, which if we do this, the most we can take is this, and use, I should say, not take. You're still giving back to the taxpayer to reduce the 2,000, so we had the question about tax rates and why do they go up in years that the budget goes up and why down? Well, you're gonna see a significant decrease, and we also, in the 2015 budget, came under the tax cap, significant. So the taxpayers are gonna expect to have a decent drop in taxes in the next year. So, and this is exactly how it affects it. So you return the unassigned fund balance, not allowed to retain, which is $1,033,000.
If we do
And
405.
yes, and you retain that amount. I would recommend doing that.
I thought you were gonna recommend going up to the maximum once the RA gives you the actual figure.
I do have the actual figure. That's the actual figure. So we were waiting,
That's what you were waiting.
and we conveniently got it just before this meeting, so I was able to speak to them today. From my sheets, we made a few adjustments to the MS-24 And this is the exact number. So to retain, for the exact figures, 407,741. And that's not into, to be clear, not in addition to the 350,000 that you remember from last year. That number's been thrown around a lot. That would be the FY15 fund balance.
Can you say that again, 407?
Unreserved fund balance that we're retaining, $407,741. And that you should include in your motion to reduce taxes by $1,033,898.
Okay. Anything else? Because I think the question was, what is it? Now we know what it is.
Yeah.
And I really did not realize there was only one public input. I'd like to get to them by 9 o'clock, if that's okay with you. And this will be a separate, not consent agenda item anyway, the fund balance,
Good.
if that's okay. Sorry, Mike, I'm looking at the clock.
What are you sorry about? I'm fine with that as well.
So the next thing was communication upgrades. We budgeted some money for AV upgrades and are looking for a report on those.
They're here.
They're here, okay?
So if you want to know, we do have all the devices now. We had a little bit of trouble getting a few. You're getting good pricing. So they're ordered from different manufacturers, so we have everything. Now, the next spot is configuring them. We are working with the high school, the AVA2, to looking to make this room a media room for both the district and the board. So you'll have a place to mix and record these items on those devices. So they're currently designing that now.
Who's doing that?
Josh, Carrie, with input from consultants, and I believe the high school principal as well.
What's the ETC?
What was that?
Estimated time of completion.
I don't know, because it probably will take at least a month.
Well, that's not,
No, I don't, the devices, so putting them all in place so that they can move for the board and the public, so that everyone can see. It includes mics for the board members, so the public can hear. It includes a mic for the public, so the board can hear. And it also includes recording on all those devices too, being mixed with digital video. So at the same time, we're looking at, mixing those with 2 computers, and it takes a little while to put it all together.
And we'll have to train everybody.
Yeah.
just some input. I had heard somewhere that the mics that they repositioned for the town of Bristol on the ceiling appear to be working better in terms of audio quality. Just something to check out that may or may not be true.
I did talk to them about that a little bit. It depends on what they're trying to record. So it's kind of a combination of that, where we looked at, you wanted individual mics too, so people could hear you. They're looking at capturing the audio of the room for recording only. So they don't have a problem with projecting to their audience, which was definitely one of the pieces of scope that you requested. So that's why it will be a little bit different than them. So that would have been a slightly lower cost option.
Are we gonna add a whiteboard here?
I don't, this is the first I've heard of a whiteboard placed right there.
This was the first I've heard that this was gonna be made a media room.
Well, no, I
But
mean,
that's a great
no, the
idea.
room right
Yeah,
back
the room
here
back
was
there.
formerly Earl
Yeah.
Mill's office. It'll give students a place to use this equipment as well. So
Oh.
part of the idea is that this could be integrated into the curriculum, so it's a little bit more complicated than just setting up, a couple of cameras for
Hey,
you.
a month's not bad, that's great.
I think we can have a definite.
It'll be done before the website.
Yeah.
That's still, we are this close to the website.
Good.
This
So
close.
I
I
think we
recommend you visit New Hampton's Safety Department just to see how good.
I think we can have a decent plan put together for hooking up. I believe we've purchased all the right amount of cables already, so that was always going to be a concern too, about how long you can broadcast some of the signals. And if we utilize that room, which I think we're going to do, we're within all those limits, so it won't cost us any more money. And then it's a good space too for students to work.
Okay. All set? First, I just want to say under public comment, it still has the line that says, with the exception of item 17, which we don't have, so just ignore that line. So at this time, we'll take public comment. Remember that public comment's limited to 5 minutes, and if you speak, say your name and your town, please. And yes?
Just a quick question. Sherry Nelson, Groton. ELO is enrichment?
Extended learning
Oh, it's
coordinator.
extended, but it is an enrichment.
No, it is actually, it's kind of non-traditional learning. So it might be students who take online courses, it might be internships or work to study. So it's kind of outside of the classroom.
Okay, so
four
high school
walls.
principals, they can go to Concord to some,
Yeah, or they might do internships within the community. So they might also work with an individual teacher to do a competency-based assessment for a course. So instead of taking a biology class, if they have a lot of background in biology, they may test out of it or do a competency-based, and she would do that.
and your recommendation was to keep that
We're
position.
having a conversation.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Sorry.
This has become a conversation instead of public input, so,
Increasing the pay? Increasing-
It was in the budget presentation.
okay.
Right, that's why I'm asking, yeah. How do you increase one person's job?
The FTE.
Continue.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I'm
so,
sorry, I can't.
Talk to me
continue.
later.
It's okay, but yeah, public comment as opposed to dialogue, so is there anyone else who would like to say something?
We waited too long.
No, she's. Nervous?
We won't bite.
Yeah, we definitely
They want to
don't.
hear the
We want to hear what you have to say.
Rohan, you can do it, just like talking to me. You can do it.
Just read it, just like we covered. Go, you can do this. Go ahead. They're listening. I'm going to talk right after you, so go ahead. Go. Say, Rohan, you have. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Rohan New Hampton.
That's fine.
Who says that? There is an online petition with over 66 signatures, and it was only started at 5 p.m. today. This is what it states. Help Mrs. Sidwell with her kindergartners in New Hampton. Oh, keep Mrs. Sidwell with her kindergartners in New Hampton. We, the residents of the Newfound Area School District, call on Newfound School Board and Superintendent to keep Mrs. Sidwell as current kindergarten teacher at New Hampton Community School. We would like to see the board come up with a different solution for this situation in Danbury, and not to take her away from her current New Hampton class to become the new first grade teacher in Danbury. Mrs. Sidwell is an incredible kindergarten teacher and has taught at New Hampton for over 21 years. The New Hampton Community School is her home, and the kindergartners are her kids. The New Hampton is her community, and she has many families who know and love her. We call on the school board to allow her to stay in her current position and find another teacher option for Danbury. In Danbury, that classroom will be needed to split, and those students will be disrupted. Why disrupt another classroom and their teacher? We call on the board to consider other options and find other solutions that does not disturb the current New Hampton kindergarten class. As Mrs. Sidwell loves her kids and deserves to stay with her current class in New Hampton, we hope you will honor our request. Thank you.
Going to speak Megan McGraw, New Hampton. Wendy Cantwell was here, she had to leave, but she had some notes she wanted me to say as well. So first of all, thank you all for ratifying the teacher's contract. That is awesome, way to go. Yay. Secondly, Wendy, we were talking about, obviously there's a petition with 65 parents who definitely want our New Hampton teacher to stay in New Hampton, and I think if we have $70,000 for a position open, that it's a no-brainer. I think that's a great solution. We should just use that and hire a new first grader for Danbury, first grade teacher. On another note, Wendy wanted to say about the all-day kindergarten that we should respectfully ask our superintendent to utilize her time to grow the district and collect the data on the kindergartners coming in like we talked about. And Wendy offered to head up the committee if we were to make a committee to go and find that data out, and so we can know it, because we both know over 20 families that have their kids in KidWorks or Heart Centered or all these other places that don't go to New Hampton, South Bonnie because they don't have a full day kindergarten. And personally, on my own note, I have 3 boys. Rohan and Tucker is now in 2nd grade, and we have a very long ride. They get on the bus at 6:35 in the morning, but you know what? They fare pretty well, and my youngest is going to be in kindergarten next year, and I would love to see full day, but he goes longer to school right now in preschool than the other 2 do. So he's there a longer amount of time than they are. So I don't think we have to worry about the time frame with these kids. Most of these kids go to preschool all day long, which is kind of sad, but it would actually be shorter days for them if they were at the school, and then we could keep those kids because those families would stay with us. So that is my recommendation, and let's see if Wendy has anything else to say. I think that's about it, so thank you. Yes?
Just a point of order here. I remember Jeff saying, let's put it on the agenda, full-time, full-day kindergarten. That would be next month?
Next month.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes.
I do think we need to get rid of the tax cap, and I know she brought it up in her thing. So I think that's a huge thing our district should work on, get rid of it. If we want to improve our district and do some good things, maintenance, and plan for the future, we need to have the flexibility to do that. So that's one more thing. Thank you.
I'm Sharon Lynn, and I live in Bridgewater. My daughter goes to New Hampton kindergarten right now, and I know from all the parents, they all support full-day kindergarten there. We had a discussion in the first couple days, and we all love Mrs. Sidwell, and we would love to see her stay.
Anyone else?
Fred Robinson from Danbury. This is in regard to the declining student population. I'd like to make a recommendation that if we haven't got one already, that we should at least implement something where when parents notify the school that they're going to be pulling their kids out of the school, that there be some sort of a survey that they be asked to fill out, which may be very valuable as far as input as to why they're leaving, where they're going, those types of things, which could be good data that the school could use, because with this declining numbers, the number of kids we're losing, we really need to find out, is there a sickness somewhere in the district that is causing people to feel that they have to leave? So that's just my input on that. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay.
Speaking of that, just a point, this month the quarterly report on sped was due. Can you have it for us next time?
Okay, and before we go on to any motions, Mamie, do you have anything to report?
Not really. I was very happy to see and so is everyone else, I'm sure, happy to see the contract moving along. Other than that, nothing really.
Thanks. And our student had sent me an email and said she couldn't be here, Ally, this week. She was very worried about missing time. And so we have no student report. Okay, at this time, we'll move to the consent agenda. Stacy, can you read what's on the
It
consent?
is, the consent agenda is the September 8th and September 22 minutes as modified. Policy VDDH, GE, and KBA, and the Waterville Valley overnight field trip at the high school.
Okay, is there a motion to?
So moved.
Yep. Vincent Paul moves, I second. Any discussion? There should be, but, okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. First individual agenda item is the overnight field trip to the Slim Baker Lodge, which is taking place this weekend. If we approve it.
I'd like to move that this be approved with a major effort to increase the number of chaperones that attend, but to not restrict it. If that can't be done.
Okay, so, hold on, I just want to read what I wrote for your motion. You move to approve this field trip with major effort to get more chaperones. I don't know if we need to say the rest because you're approving it, right? I mean, that's what your motion is.
I think it just clarifies that if we don't get more chaperones, they can still go on the trip, but we will try.
Okay, all right, so you want me to add that, to get more chaperones,
Yeah, and
but,
the nature of the motion is to, for this particular trip, I'd just like to see that one heavily chaperoned in the future.
okay,
That's the message.
yeah. Leah, do you have that?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Don. Any discussion?
Quick
Ben?
question, do we have any policy, it seems like I read something, but is there a policy in place in regards to a chaperone per student ratio?
I don't think it
It's in
spells
the
it out.
handbook. Yeah, it's in the handbook.
How
I
many
think.
kids per student?
Either that or it's in a policy. Definitely, there's a ratio about how many, and it says it on the permission slip site or something.
And it varies probably according to
Yes,
age.
yes.
So, I suppose.
I feel really bad about this, but do principals know? Because they probably know.
Does anybody know? And if the policy outlines how many students per adult?
I can't tell you the specific policy. I can tell you, excuse me, when we take the 8th graders to DC, it's approximately 10 to 1.
Yeah,
And that's what the
For
tour
overnight.
company allows.
yeah,
That's what this is.
yeah, yeah,
Certainly, the younger the student, the more chaperones you want.
yeah. Some of that state set. No?
State doesn't set it.
Oh, really? They
don't
do,
outline.
they do for like, if our community center does a field trip, they do. Like if it's water-based, there's a different ratio from if it's a land-based field trip. Yeah.
It's all individual policy.
Well, here's an example of if the website were really cool, and we could do that search on chaperones.
Well, we can, yeah, I can give you.
I can answer that right away.
Center field trips, I can.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that passed by an aye vote. So next, I'll make this motion. I make a motion that we hire a first grade teacher for the remainder of the year at Danbury Elementary School. Actually, I already made that motion, and we didn't act on it.
Well, you didn't ask for a second.
I had got a second also.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, yeah.
Was it me?
No, Sue had seconded it.
Because I was louder.
Yes. So anyway, I'm moving 2 seconds.
Would you, within that motion, be willing to amend it to authorize the superintendent to hire somebody? So if we could find somebody before the next meeting, I don't have to wait to hire them till the next
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, all right, that friendly amendment, I accept that. You accept that?
I accept that.
Yeah, so we both accepted it. So authorizing the superintendent to hire a first grade teacher for DES for the remainder of the year. Any comments or questions?
How does this affect, like you had all the planning in there, how does, say it takes 3 weeks to a month to get another teacher, how does that affect?
Yeah, so we will, so like I had the timeline mapped out, so knowing that, so we have advertised for a part-time position. We will probably look at those applicants to see if maybe any of them would want full-time, you know what I mean? We'll start there because we already have a couple of applicants. If none of them are satisfactory, we'll have to go back out and advertise. So that timeline is gonna adjust a tad bit, given what we're looking for now. But we will, Ann and I have already, we will move on it as fast as we can, so.
Considered a sub-position, or is it?
It would be a full, it would be a permanent one-year position, so they would not get a contract next year. It would be a one, that we would fill it in on their contract, it will say a one-year position.
Anyone else? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Next, we have the fund balance.
I move,
Not very fun.
Okay, go ahead, you move.
I move that the board authorize the retention of $200,000 to retain said balance for use in the current fiscal year.
Isn't that the only time it can be used?
Well,
I think every year.
No, that's all you, it's, the rest goes back to the taxpayers. So that would be increasing the amount to, going back to taxpayers to $1,240,000. I'll give you the exact number for the motion.
Well, Mike does that. The rationale behind my thought on this is that, again, we continue to see surpluses year after year, and for whatever reason, I think that 200,000 could cover us this year.
We still have 350,000, correct?
No.
I've been trying to emphasize that. You have no 350.
Yeah,
That was it.
that's
So you're reducing
Every year you have to vote on it again.
The whole idea is that that money is for use, if necessary, if approved by the budget committee only, if we want to use it every year on a rolling basis, if we vote to utilize RSA 198, which is what I'm proposing here, which is why I wanted to know what the total unfunded balance, the total balance was, so that we could determine the amount. And I'm just more comfortable with reducing that to give
I'll emphasize too,
as
in
much
regards
as
to
we can
this,
back to the towns.
that if we use, because remember, Stacy, myself, and we're all new, we had nothing to do with, setting last year's budget. Only a few of you here were there last year. We're not responsible for that budget.
We thought it was lean.
Well, whatever you like, but if we use this whole budget, which was what we're authorized to do, carrying forward, you will again only have 200,000, you will not be able to retain anything else. So that's something
Clarify
to
that,
put.
please.
If we use this budget, which is our intention, you only have 200,000 going forward. You'll be able to retain nothing because we'll have used the entire budget. Unless there is extraordinary revenue, which there is a possibility of.
You mean next year they'll be never.
Correct.
The bad news, I understand that, Mike.
Okay, I just want to make sure that everybody understands
It's
what you're talking about.
The bad news is that what happens when you have such a huge return to the taxpayers is if all the town's select boards give it all back, then it artificially reduces the tax bill for that town that month. And they see a significant reduction in their taxes.
I totally understand that, which is why I wanted you not to send back as much, so you're making it larger.
Yeah, I know. And the way to deal with this is to budget properly, and which we're trying to be sure. What happens is the following year, you need all of the dough, and you have to budget for it, and it looks like a tax increase.
You have a tax cap.
That's what the tax cap is for.
You probably want to rescind it if you're gonna play.
So you have a motion.
Hold on,
Do you need a
because,
second?
yeah, right, we need a second. Is that what you wanted to do?
No.
Oh,
But that's the point.
Yeah, so let's-
Okay, so is there
There's no
anybody that
second.
wants
Oh,
to second
sorry, I
this
thought it was
motion?
second.
We're having a discussion about it.
Is there a second?
No second.
There is no second.
What's the
Okay.
motion again, Lydia?
The motion was to retain
Retain
200,000 for use in the current
Oh,
year.
I'll make a motion to retain 400,000 for a nice round number.
Wait.
What?
You didn't get a second.
There's been no confirmation that there's no second.
Is there a
Yes, I thought-
second? I asked and nobody
wanted to just-
volunteered. Okay?
No, because
I did ask you.
Okay.
Christine had a comment, so I didn't know whether
Okay.
she was going to second after the answer.
No, she says no second. So Jeff, go ahead.
Okay, I make a motion that we retain 400,000, just because it's a round number, and the extra 7,700 there. That way, when we say 400,000, it'll be a factual number.
Make it easier, so.
Sure. We'll redo all the paperwork to make it a round number. Let's go.
Okay. Is there a second for that? Been asked 3 times. Does anybody want to second that motion? And is there a second? No, there is no second.
Well, I'll make a motion
Okay.
Let's go with something in the
Right in the
middle.
middle.
that we place $350,000 in the retained fund balance, consistent with RSA 198 or something, whatever was referenced previously and would actually be the right law to reference. That's my motion.
Well, Jesus, I'll second that.
Second by Jeff. All right, I just want to clarify, is he correct in referencing the RSA? I mean, the amount, 350,000 was just what we came up with,
I
right?
think I'm probably correct in referencing the RSA.
Maybe, I'm just wondering, should it be part of the motion, or should the motion just end at that we retain 350,000?
So it's authorized under
Under
RSA.
RSA.
Okay, all
Yes,
right.
you can
I just want to
retain
make sure that was
any
correctly
dollar amount
referenced.
and up to a maximum of the number I gave you, 407,
Okay.
741.
Okay, so I just didn't want us writing this motion and having it be incorrectly used.
And then you also have to put in that motion what you're going to return to the taxpayer. So
Why don't you
What is that?
fix this up with
I
that?
will give you that.
$1,108,863.
Go with that.
1108,
I don't feel
and
like
what's
you're
the
probably going to
rest?
change it.
$1,108,863.
863. Okay, is that okay with Ben? Can we amend it to say, and return that to the taxpayers?
Yeah.
Okay, and Jeff, is that okay with you?
Yes.
Okay, so
So can we
to,
discuss it now?
yes. So now we can discuss it, the motion's done. Don?
Mike, what does it take to use the fund balance that we're able to determine that?
Yeah, not much, because it's actually it's not part of the budget, so there is a DRA form that we would have to fill out and it would take a vote. And it would basically be like it would basically be the same as using supplemental revenue.
I don't agree with that specifically unless you are including the fact that the budget committee has to approve it.
No, I'm not
Then I
including that.
disagree.
Okay,
Because the budget committee, I believe, does have to approve the intended use of the funds.
okay.
And then it's got to go to the Department of Ed for the commissioner's approval.
Yes, that's accurate.
It does have to go to the Department of Ed.
Yeah.
It is already retained unreserved fund balance, which is why the budget committee, I believe, does not have to, but
And
I
if
could not
we
get
can
clarity from the
research it.
DRA from that today, because they don't touch that.
And if we don't spend it this year, it's surplus in June.
While we're researching the tax cap question, we'll also research that question.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's have to be included.
So that's 32 or something like that.
Just for the sake of further discussion and clarification, since this number is so huge this year, I would really like to send back as much money to the taxpayers as possible. That's one motivation. But the other part of this is that the education of the taxpayers on this as well. And if we use the same number, I think it could get a little confusing as opposed, not necessarily this year maybe, but the year after. In people thinking that we voted to retain 350,000 2 years in a row, and that's the number. And we may always do that. So part of my motivation for changing the number in a year where there was a huge amount going back had to do with that. To note that it has to change every year to educate the taxpayers and voters that it's not a simple thing, that we do have to go to the budget committee to get permission, and that the Commissioner of Education has to approve its expenditure as well, if we do in fact intend to use it. So, after further discussion, I would like to amend it to a different number, but I want to hear commentary on my thoughts.
Well, only the maker and the second can amend it.
Well, unless I move to amend.
Done?
My point in asking Mike about what it would take to spend it is, Stacy's gone through, a lot of the facility improvements that are needed. And, if this money isn't going to be available in future years, it could be the board's decision to utilize this money for making those improvements in the current budget year.
I don't think you can do that. I think it has to be an emergency kind of situation. It can't be for regular budgeting purposes. I don't know that. I mean, I don't want to speak for the state, but I'm guessing if you said, well, we want to re-wax the gym floor, that's not an emergency, that's not, but if we said, if the roof leaks, yeah. That we didn't.
How did you defeat the purpose of it, to keep it as an emergency cushion if you decide you're gonna use it for specific?
I also don't think you want to start budgeting through that money, like.
198, is that right?
Yeah, because then it's not there when you do it.
I'm looking for it now.
Also, it's just not a good way to budget.
Yeah.
It's a nice idea, but then you have a real emergency, you have the money.
Not if you wait till near the end of the year.
Yeah.
Decide to utilize the money.
My reason for originally proposing the 400 is after I thought about it. Tonight we've discussed the fact that we have had a significant increase in special education costs, which are not restricted at all. And if we have a trend of increasing special ed needs this year, what's to say that we don't sustain a catastrophic case? Another thing that concerns me is current weather patterns. This week, the South has experienced some unbelievable storms. We have a middle school with roof leaks. I wasn't aware of that at the beginning of the meeting. We're one bad storm away from a flooded library at the middle school. I think that it would be foolhardy not to retain as much money as we can legitimately, where we have no contingency funds other than that.
Anyone else?
On the other side of the coin, from what Vinnie's talking about with having a different number kind of from year to year, you could think of it as, if you do have a consistent number, then voters would be maybe expecting that a little bit more, and if they get the money back, they would, I think people have a hard time with getting the money back and fully understand why they get this money back, and especially with cuts made of employees and staff. So if that number is on a consistent basis, does it show that, yes, we have this pocket of safety, if you want to call it, it could get used up, it might not get used up, but in the end, it might end up going back. So consistency isn't a bad thing.
I'm sorry.
Ben?
Do we have any more clarity on, I guess, bad on me, but I think there was maybe some confusion confusion on what exactly we can use this fund for. And I don't know if there's anything else that anybody else is willing to offer in regards to that.
Well, it could be academic or structural, right? It doesn't have to be a leaky roof. It could be that you have a child that breaks their back skiing and now they are in a wheelchair and they need a one-to-one aid and.
We could have a student move into town who's in a residential placement at $200,000.
Yeah, so those are emergencies that are not,
Or an IEP that requires a one-on-one aid that we don't have in the budget, things like that. My experience is coming from a city government where if we did have that circumstance, it would automatically go, by law, I have to do that, it would automatically come out of fund balance. I don't know specifically for an SB2 school, the process of requesting funds for an item that had not been budgeted. That's a little bit different. And we only use fund balance in the case of an absolute emergency. The idea was to also improve your credit rating too, as a town, that you do have a contingency in place for extraordinary items. I'm not a big fan of budgeting and contingencies. I'm also not a fan of padding. I would never use a phrase like that. So when we budget like this, you're gonna see a line item budget with an explanation for every line in there, and we do plan on spending it. Or we wouldn't have put it in there in the first place.
I support Jeff in retaining the maximum amount.
okay, well, the motion on the floor right now is for $350,000 and it had a second by Jeff. So unless he withdraws his second, that's the motion that we'll be acting on. So, any other comments? Because I'm going to call the question. Unless,
I was looking to see if I could get.
Yeah, I proposed the 400 the first time and I couldn't even get a second, so.
okay.
I mean, if there's any indication that there might, the possibility of 400 going again,
You'd have to withdraw your second on this motion.
well, that's what I'm saying, is it? Should I withdraw my second or should we just call the vote?
The reason I didn't second is because I thought it should just be this 2.5%. It should be that full amount. However, 350,
Oh, wait a minute.
will that work for our budget?
Wait a minute, there's a misunderstanding, if I may. 2.5% is not 405,000, it's the maximum allowable.
No, that's why, it's capped at the
That's why it's
2.5%.
an odd number.
So you take the local assessment, you add in any retained, so the calculation gets a little, I take the assessment, add back the funds that would have gone to lessen that assessment. So I'm taking the 2015 assessment with the return funds, bring them back in, and I take 2.5% of that, and that is the number that you can retain up to. Okay?
I'm gonna withdraw my second.
Okay.
I move that we retain $407,741.
Okay, so Don moves to retain, I have this number written down a million times, $407,741. And return, $1,033,898.
Correct.
Okay. To the taxpayer.
That's also less than 1% of your entire, that's just, so I shouldn't say that, it's about 1.5%, a little over that, of your entire budget that you're retaining for emergency and contingency.
Is there a second?
You want to second that?
I'm not seconding a motion or anything else.
Okay. I'll
2
do
seconds,
it.
all right, 2 seconds.
Because I'm louder.
All right, any comments on that?
Finally came up, and a comment on how to use it is in RSA
You
3211.
scared them all away. Yeah?
Would you like to hear that information? I'm here to use as a revenue source for emergency expenditures and over expenditures under RSA 3211, or to be used as a revenue source to reduce the tax cap. I'm sorry, to reduce the tax rate.
which you're actually using both of those right now. And the question though is really a paperwork related question, which I can't answer for an SB2 school district. I did try to get guidance from the DRA on it. That's all I have as a reference, which would make me believe that. You don't, it would have to be an emergency, which in this case would be an out-of-district placement that puts you in budget jeopardy, something to that effect, which is what was always the case for us.
Or an over expenditure.
Yeah, that's also included in the expenditure.
Well, that's what I mean, it takes you into that. It forces you, it's not like something, it's not something that you would, like, oh, we could use a new computer system for this. That could take you into an over expenditure. This is generally a forced expenditure.
Okay, I have it up. Emergency expenditures and over expenditures.
For town
Permission
and,
from the chair?
well, that's for town and village districts?
Yeah.
If it's under 32, it's SB2.
But 198 references this.
Okay.
It says, when an unusual circumstance arises during the year which makes it necessary to expend money in excess of an appropriation which may result in an over expenditure of the total amount appropriated for all purposes at the meeting, or when no appropriation has been made, the selectmen or village district commissioners, which implies, I think implies the budget committee in our case, upon application to the Commissioner of Revenue Administration or the school board upon application to Commissioner of Education may be given authority to make such expenditure, provided that such application shall be made prior to the making of the expenditure. No such authority shall be granted until a majority of the budget committee, if any, has approved the application in writing. That's the part I was talking about. If there is no budget committee, the governing body shall hold a public hearing on the request, as provided or noted in RSA 91A2, which is right to know. The Commissioner of Revenue of Administration or the Commissioner of Education may accept and approve an application after the expenditure if caused by a sudden or unexpected emergency, in which case paragraph 1 shall not apply, which is the prior requirement. Neither the Commissioner of Revenue nor the Commissioner of Education shall approve such expenditure unless the governing body designates the source of the revenue to be used. Neither Commissioner shall have the authority to increase the town or the district's tax rate in order to fund such expenditure, which is why you retain it.
Yeah.
So, thank you for your indulgence on taking this further education on the topic as we begin to trod through it over these early years and having adopted it.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Wait a minute, 2? Then, and Vincent Paul said no. Any abstentions?
Yeah, I have to say.
Okay, hold on, I haven't even voted, so right now we're in trouble. No, I vote aye, so 4 aye, 2 no, 1 abstention.
And that was over 400, correct?
That was on the 407.
Okay, so 407, 741.
A little, that's a little, I don't know about that.
About what?
You called for the vote, but you didn't vote.
Because I'm writing, so I just didn't say anything.
No, it's not easy.
It wouldn't have mattered.
She did
4-2.
put it after.
Well, it would be anyway.
If she voted no, or if she voted to abstain, it would have been a tie and it would have been defeated.
But she voted yes.
And she voted yes.
After hearing what the vote was thus far.
It wasn't,
It's still the vote.
Whatever.
I didn't know I was doing it individual until 2 of you said no, and then I had to.
Yeah. That, in my opinion, is why you want to be consistent when you take votes, either roll call all the time or just, you know.
I usually say aye, I just had to clarify how many had said no, because I sort of sounded off at the same time.
Whatever, it passed.
Okay, next we have approval of manifests.
Not at this time. Manifest, anyone gets a chance, we have 1 signature for all of August, I believe, but we need a second, and we need September signed. and I'll try to get into it.
Okay.
Was mine August, or?
I think you were the one.
Announcements and recognitions. Stacy, do you have any?
I just have a couple. I actually, well, Dana just left, but Dana and I just attended this morning a press conference that will be, I think, probably in the paper tomorrow, regarding that Bridgewater Key Room was chosen as a Commissioner Circle of Excellence for Innovative Practice for their greenhouse. And so I think there were a ton of awards given out this morning, but there were 5 schools with innovative practices that were given out. And so Dana and I attended that this morning, so congratulations to them. I did want to add, we had a great professional development day on Friday. We had 50 teachers do a training on Marzano, which is our evaluation system. I think teachers were overwhelmed at the end of the day, but it was all a great overwhelming in the sense of, I think they felt like they got so much out of it. It was a wonderful addition. And then Therese had worked with the Allied Arts on the new state standards, and we had a representative from the state come and talk to them about the new standards, so that was great. And lastly, I would like to, actually 2 more things. One is I want to congratulate Ed Judd, who applied for a Meadowbrook Foundation music grant. We received $5,640 to create a smart music room at the middle and the high school. So I think this money was going to the middle school first. And I believe it's a 2-year grant. They'll get the rest of the money next year to implement at the high school. And the middle school, Meredith Village Savings Bank is having a arts contest that the middle school has put a proposal in to buy display boards so that we can have traveling kind of art displays in the school, outside of the school. And so if you go to Meredith Village Savings Bank website, it's based on how many people like your project.
You vote.
So you can go and vote there, so.
And there are
go
other
to go vote.
districts competing.
Yes, yeah, I think there's about 10 proposals there, so last I heard we were in 3rd place, so get out and vote.
And that's at Meredith Village Savings Bank?
Correct.
Online?
Online.
Okay.
Yes.
Was that it?
Yep.
Right, okay.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to share that, got an email from Josh Adjutant, who used to be our student representative here. And he was moving from Camp Lejeune, I think, to California. I don't know, he was in the middle of a transfer, and he had some thoughts on school issues, so it was kind of neat to hear from him from that long distance. And then, if there are no other announcements and recognitions, I have one other business, which is just a reminder that we're meeting back here again tomorrow night, 6 o'clock, for the RSA 195 committee meeting on the Bridgewater Hebron withdrawal study. You thought you were eating separate tomorrow night, but you were wrong. Okay. Anything else? Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved, and it is 9:40-ish. I second.